Wow. Going on with YouTube. Took it a while this time. It took a lot longer than normal to go live. Weird. We're like a minute and a half behind. So we're in the future, guys. We are in the future. And our chatters are way in the past, about a second or I think like a full minute.
Far out. Can we get the lotto numbers or something? Make it worthy.
They found in Tempe, Arizona, they found a Wells Fargo employee dead at her desk. And she had been there for 4 days, dead.
Yeah, I heard about that. Kind of a consequence of remote working.
Yeah, I guess so. But, you think that a manager would have noticed that her output had dropped off significantly.
It just depends.
Some people, they just can't quit, outputting and working. They work like right up to the end and like, sometimes 4 days after. But holy shit, that's pretty amazing. Wells Fargo could not be reached for comment, I think.
I heard about they had one of the worst decomposed body or something. This person passed away, and I guess it was like 9 months.
Ooh.
The person literally liquefied into the furniture, into the floor.
After 9 months, you think the smell would be over anyway.
Well, the thing was, how you can set up everything nowadays, right? Yeah. So bills were getting paid. The lawn was getting cut, by the, contractor. So many things was going on, and there wasn't enough mail building up or anything until they finally, noticed, hey, wait a minute, this has been sitting in the mailbox for a while or whatever. But yeah, 9 months, you're pretty much gone, except for the bones.
Hopefully you guys can't hear that. You hear any of that? You didn't hear anything.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Good. That means you can't hear it. Because I just had
tapping.
Huh? No, I just had a bunch of shit starting up. But somebody's fucking around with their microphone. Probably Scott.
Yeah,
I was typing.
Is that typing?
Uh-huh.
Okay, you're not allowed to do that.
I was just saying hi to Brainless Steel out there.
Okay, don't do that unless you mute. Yeah. I don't know where your keyboard is. It must be right on top of your microphone.
Yeah, it's all on the same laptop, so I can see why.
Oh, okay.
Plus it's a hard surface, so I can see why the sound might come up.
Stephanie has a appropriate message for Jimbob. Go fuck himself.
A public service announcement.
A public service announcement. Yeah. And God, he is just such an ass. I can't believe it. I went on and tried to talk to him again the other day, and I don't want to be mean with these guys. I mean, sometimes I get tired of being mean with them, but he won't drop the arrogance. He's saying all this stupid shit. What's the scientific method that you use to arrive at evolution? It's like, does anybody besides me realize how fucking dumb how little sense that makes?
That's just a way to deflect from the topic that I think you were actually covering.
I guess so. I don't know.
From the way you described the conversation to me.
Yeah, I started, okay, the observation is that, the all of life today, which you can't really observe because it covers the entire earth. And of course, you can't observe it all at once. And that's the observation, the diversity of life. And the question is, how did that happen? And then he says, but what's the hypothesis? Now, there is no one hypothesis. I guess you could come up with a press release hypothesis and say changes in allele frequency over time, or you could say variation by natural selection or something like that. But that doesn't have anything to do really with evolution. Those are press releases, okay? And if you want to ask how did it happen, that isn't the explanation you're going to give. You're not, even though sometimes it, like you did, Dave. You said allele changes in allele frequency over time, because that's the kind of answer they're looking for. That's the shortness, right? But they're never going to accept any of that because that isn't really the whole story. The whole story. And then
well, he talked over me when I said,
right.
Along with many other lines of evidence. But that is, I just called him out. I said, can you tell me what the theory of evolution states?
Yeah.
Not, what is the whole theory of evolution? And, so he, cherry picks and talks over you. But I did say, along with, but I already know if you mention fossils, he already denies that. He denies biogeography. He literally thinks that two animals identically evolved on different continents.
Yeah. He is just so far from the tools necessary to understand anything about science. Like I think he finally understood how rockets work. That it's not.
I don't know.
But I mean, like, okay, this is a guy that claims to be a metal worker, and to be a metal worker and not understand the simplest things about physics kind of scares me.
Well, see, he says he's not a flat earther, but what's he using? What does a rocket use? What does a rocket push against in space? That's a flat earther argument.
Yeah, it is. And then, his whole thing that he doesn't really believe there are satellites. He thinks the satellites are in balloons and all this bullshit.
Yeah, and the space station is something. I don't know what he was. I got kind of lost.
Yeah. Oh, so
but that Red's rhetoric though was on it. He had one of his friends actually has a nice telescope and was taking pictures himself or herself from Earth with the telescope of the space station, slowly, adding pieces and the space shuttle being there and everything.
Yep.
And then he showed it also from the shuttle feed, the ISS feed, and from the Chinese space station. They all had pictures, and you can see it going together. And he goes, well, I'll have to take a look at that. It's like, yeah, you take a look at that.
So I think Spilled Beans wants to come and talk to us.
Spilled Beans.
Yeah. Do you want to come talk to us, Spilled Beans? We'll put the link out there.
The first step in the scientific method can be a question, an observation, and or a hypothesis.
Yeah.
Because as you form the observation, you're also thinking, and you're forming a question. And that is a simple hypothesis. So you can have all of it all at the same time, or you can then go to a more sophisticated hypothesis where you write it out in a paper. But the idea going off in your head is there. That is what I said to Jimbob.
If Spilled Beans comes in, I'm going to put you guys in a back room and just talk to him myself, if that's okay. And then I'll let you talk to him, Dave. Is that all right?
I explained myself. I said there's nothing wrong with saying the first step is a hypothesis, because some definitions say the first step is a hypothesis. And again, I'm not a scientist. I wasn't studying for a test. It wasn't in my head. But when I looked it up, they said, yeah, you can say it's a hypothesis because you are looking, thinking, questioning all at the same time. So it's kind of a gray area. If you want to be specific on a test, the first step is either observation or question.
God damn it, Spooky Bed Hair. You're trying to kill me.
So even when they keep telling me it has to be observation, it's like, no, it can be question. It depends on which study guide you have. But it doesn't matter because the theory of evolution has already been thoroughly tested by many fields. and gone through all the testing through the scientific method and going back when you already have a theory, I don't see what the point is.
Well, come on, Spill Beans. You can have a talk with him. We'll have a calm talk about this, and I'll explain to you why this is such a silly thing to talk about.
Yeah, you already have the theory. The theory has already gone past the scientific method.
Many iterations, yeah. And when a scientist goes to work in the morning, he doesn't pull out a little recipe card and say, "Oh no, what is the first step of the scientific method?" Right. No one does science like that, right? We do.
And again, I'm just a lay person. If you want me to be prepared with notes, like I do when I do my shows, I can be prepared with notes. When you're just throwing questions at me, I'm not ready for it. Sorry, I don't have the notes in front of me, and sorry, I'm not a specialist in any one of these fields.
Okay? Spill beans. Okay, just listen to me for a second. Okay, you tow your car doesn't start, and you tow it into the shop, and the mechanic comes out and says, "Well, the observation is that this car is not starting, right?" Well, how did he observe? I don't know how he observed that, but anyway, okay. And the question is, why didn't the car start? And the hypothesis is the car didn't start because it's broken. I mean, what the fuck are you guys talking? Nobody does this when they do work, right? Nobody sits around.
First step is, does it crank? Does it have a battery starter? Second step is, does it have fuel and spark?
Yeah. Anyway, I mean,
that I know.
People do that automatically, but that doesn't have anything to do with explaining the theory of evolution. Okay, you got to listen if you want to explain. I think all atheists and theists are going to be unemployed tomorrow. Why? What's happening tomorrow?
Well, his argument and creationist arguments is that it's not a scientific theory. And it's like, that's just like, well, you're just denying that it's a scientific theory. Okay. What do you say to that? Right. That's like, well, I just deny germ theory. Okay. Yeah. Does that make it go away? No.
Yeah, what do you say next? Where does that conversation, how does that conversation go anyway? Breakfast Tacos is going to end God tonight. So that we don't have to be atheists anymore. Yay! I don't want to be an atheist.
Hello, Taco. How you doing?
Hey, I don't want to be an atheist. He made he's got a transcendental argument. Oh, they love those. They're gonna eat that one up.
So they're just gonna go a lot because that's all they can do when you turn it around on them.
Yeah. When you come up with the greatest, a possible world where there is the greatest pizza, where there's the ultimate pizza, a possible world. In any possible world, it is necessary that there be an ultimate pizza, right? Like one with bacon, for instance, and no fucking pineapples. Anyway, okay, where are we at here? So I had a little conversation with all these fools trying to explain which is going to be fuck is going on. Can you guys read that? No. Can you read it now?
Yes, I see comments.
Okay, Omar Clunas, he's my favorite buddy. Spill Beans is too scared to come in. Got these guys, they're call in, you coward, and all that stuff. And then when you try to get them to come and have if you had a conversation on my channel, you would not have the same kind of conversation that Jimbob has with us. It would be, I can talk to you pleasantly and reasonably.
The Gur stopped through your chat there.
Oh, fucking Gurmania. He's still alive?
May I comment on that first?
Live and kicking.
Yeah, go ahead.
That Omar Clunas or whatever.
Yeah, Omar.
That's a stupid question.
Yeah.
Why do you want to talk about what's the first step of the scientific method? It's so pedantic.
Because they're making fun of me. They're making fun of me because I said hypothesis. Okay.
Yeah.
In fifth grade.
And it's close enough for a layperson.
Sorry. It is close enough. In fact, if you look at 3 or 4 different sources, you'll see it ordered in different ways.
In fifth grade, we went through the steps of the scientific method. because I think fifth grade was a science fair year, for elementary school.
Well, in my head, it's hypothesis, test, and repeat, which is peer review, repeatable, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and so
that's the three basic things I have in my head.
So the young elementary school science student needs those steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. But as you grow older, you realize that it's kind of a dynamic process that feeds in on itself, and so it's more like having these, those pins that you juggle up in the air. That juggler's jump. One of the pins is labeled hypothesis. One is labeled experimentation. Another one's labeled or observation. Another one's labeled theory. They're just up in the air, and as you go through the process, it involves each of those processes, but the order it goes in is pretty much not something that they concern themselves with. That's something for fifth graders, just having to learn.
And I didn't. It wasn't really. I said a hypothesis. He said no, it's an observation. I was like, okay, observation. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, and he's still going on about it. I'm like, okay, sure, well, observation. Like I said again. Specifically, okay, let's look it up, right? Yeah, okay. Observation or questions. Yeah, okay. Well, all right. And then what? Then you form a hypothesis. So, but we already have a theory, and it's like when you deny it's a theory, and you deny basically that no testing has ever been done on anything. It's like, well, okay, what am I supposed to say?
Well, he was just trying to lead you down the primrose.
Yeah. He just needs to grow up and learn science, and just focusing on that question. This Omar Bibbidi Bob, whatever his name is, it's just showing that either he doesn't know science or he's just trying to ignorantly, put you into some sort of rhetorical trap, which nobody needs to be in.
Which is why I'm not interested in doing debates. I like to do my videos where I can make my notes and I can look stuff up and I can check my facts, and I can read through it before I record it, all these things, right? And you can still make a mistake, right? But yeah, trying to corner lay people on things with a lay people understanding doesn't win you over to get your stuff into a textbook. And that's what Hovind and Ken Ham and all these creationists think they can do. If they just sit back and make videos, they're going to change the textbooks. And it at some point, it's just like, it's nonsense. You're not doing anything for science, just sitting there saying, no, it ain't. Okay.
Okay, the path he wants to lead you down, it's okay, come up with a hypothesis, right?
Yep.
And then how do you observe the hypothesis? How do you observe alleles changing over time or whatever the hell? And that's supposed to be his gotcha, right? And that's his bait. And for some reason, if these guys were in seventh grade and they were doing like debate class or something like that, I could kind of understand those kind of arguments. But I can't understand it coming from an adult, he actually knows a few philosophical terms. It's as if he's read stuff. I can't believe that he is as dumb as he pretends. But anyway, this isn't Omar's argument. It's Jimbob's. Okay, you got a bunch of fanboys listen to Jimbob make fun of people, and that's how they get their rocks off. That's the whole thing. And they want to bring in an atheist, these little gotchas. How do you type it?
Oh, sorry.
God damn, Scott. God, it's hard to find good help. God damn it.
Anyway. I'm trying to be friendly and write messages to our people in side chat.
That'd be great. If they didn't.
While you're interrupting, Al's in the chat out there, and Al's been recovering from a serious health issue. He's in the hospital, and everybody, I'm sure we wish Al all the best there, and he is back home, but we want Al all better. All right.
Got some recovering to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's too bad, especially in August, or Yeah, it still is.
Well, he's in Canada, so it's like winter most of the
who
time up
cares?
there anyway.
Right. May as well stay in the house. Yeah, I'm going up north next week, and I said something about something about summer or something. My brother said summer's over. It's like, really? I forgot about that. I forgot what it's like in northern Minnesota. Summer ends on September 1st.
A friend of mine loves the going out west with the Rockies and the whole area, and they were traveling back and forth so many times they decided to move there. So she's in the Utah mountains now, and she says, "Yeah, the summer's pretty short."
I'm not.
But it is beautiful. She's got a mountains, the mountain scenery right outside her window. It is beautiful.
Am I ignoring Johnny? I didn't think I was ignoring him. Oh my God. Anyway,
back to
this thing. Okay.
Hey,
so
Mama.
every definition I've blah blah blah. So dark aesthetics found online definition about scientific method. Who cares? That's good, but this is for captive desk. I've seen JB go down the line of questioning before, and he might not reply to your challenge. Your challenge, okay?
I'm popular.
Yeah, it's not even a challenge. It's just basic science. These guys know basic science. If anthers and atheism can agree with JB about the scientific method, then captive death should. They keep asking.
I did.
Oh, I know, over and over again. They keep asking me, what did your friend say? Why doesn't your friend agree with you?
I did. I said, okay, it's observation. Technically, I was off a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah. So here's what I wrote to him. I said, you guys really damaged me yesterday. I have this optimism from living in a particular intellectual bubble, and I am realizing how much we are still like our common ancestor with the chimps. Please stop asking about the scientific method when somebody is talking about evolution. Please, I'm losing hope. So, confirmation that religion is making us stupid. You lose critical thinking skills when you have a herd who thinks there are simple answers such as you find in your myth. Please give me my hope back. I'm begging them to fucking help me out here. Okay, and then he says, what does Omar say to me? Mike, when conducting a scientific theory, it is subject to the scientific method, right? Yeah, but you don't have a little card. That isn't how you get your car fixed, idiot. I'm sorry, I'm being mean.
Well, I'm sure Mama could tell you could talk hours and hours just on all the different fields that have done how many tests on how many specific things. I mean, that there's just no way you can answer that question.
Yeah, what I've realized that instead of answering a simple question, you all decide to be rude for what is essentially no reason. And since you agreed that it should follow the scientific method, one should fully expect your friend to have the same answer, right? Friend, do you have the same answer, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, did we call and compare notes? And, what does your recipe card say about the scientific?
Hey, like I said, if I would have looked it up first, I would have seen that the first step is technically observation or question, depending on which definition you look up.
And
so, I could have also fired back, which I didn't. But I mean, if you want to nitpick, then you're wrong too, because, you could be question or it could be a hypothesis. But it's like, I didn't do that. I did it in my video, but I didn't do that there. He said, no, it's observation. I said, oh, okay, observation. I was just like, okay, that's fine. But see, that's why I don't do debates. People like, if it was like Grayson or Mark Reed or some of these folks, they're more on it with all these specifics, right? And they do a lot better at answering on the spot. I don't do well at it, okay? Guilty, all right? Sorry. But it doesn't change the textbooks.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. What do you consider valid ways of knowing, aka past the knowledge? What are the ones you think are bogus? We'll get into that later. Okay, let's go through this. Okay. I'm talking down now. Okay, when explaining evolution, I say one would never in capital letters, start talking about the philosophy of science. This is a trick your mind is playing on you because you are afraid that listening to reason is going to destroy your beliefs. What you perceive as rude is just our reaction to insanity. Honestly, Omar, do you believe that any of you guys have actually been listening to us? Jimbob is using us as idols or props. He nor you know the first thing about evolution. I have patiently tried to help you. What my friend who never claimed to be a scientist says has nothing to do with this, okay? Leave Dave alone. Once again, if someone tries to discuss a topic with you and you bring up the scientific method, then you are being disingenuous, or you are appealing to a fourth grade approach to learning the topic. If you want to bring that uh, scientific method in, then pick a paper where they did an experiment. There are millions of them. Each one could be a way to talk about the scientific method. You are entering the forest with a professional and demanding that they explain all the details in the forest by showing you first where the forest part is, which is a category error, right? And
yeah,
then
and like I said, it's just a dodge. They want to change the flow of the conversation because if they stay, on track with you, then they feel like they're losing something.
And they're going to have to actually talk about the theory, right? Which is something they never want to do. They ask you how it evolved, but they don't want to know. They don't give a fuck. They don't want to hear that part. They have no patience. They get bored and they fall asleep as soon as they in the first paragraph of the first page of the first chapter of the book.
And it's even harder when I already know he's going to deny fossils. He's going to deny plate tectonics. He's going to deny biogeography. And then he's going to throw in, well, of course the flood happened because it's miraculous, so I don't have to explain it. Yeah. And that, just throws the wrench in the works to anything could be explained with, well, the flood did this, the flood did that. But then he turns around the other day and he's making fun of Roger at the mud fossil thing. And I'm like, are you making fun of the guy because of his flood beliefs?
Yeah, exactly. They're just as dumb. Ignorant, I should say ignorant. Well, dumb is stupid is ignorant plus arrogant, and they certainly check both those boxes. Stupid plus ignorant. Ignorant is okay. We're all fucking ignorant of a lot of things, like me with physics. But I don't sit around and argue with physicists like I fucking know, the theory. Anyway, but I said, sorry, I get frustrated. And I said, my answers are never nonsense. What I'm referring to, he made a comment that I throw out nonsense, simple one-liners. Like I will say that morality is just a single cell valence in a single-celled organism, or I'll say morality is biology. And they are always provocative introductions to a new way of thinking. That's just my style. I always come up with something that almost sounds ridiculous at the start, and then I'll go ahead, if you listen and have a conversation with me, I can defend the shit I say. And I do this all the time. I've done it all my life. I always start out with that simple one-liner. It should have been Rodney Dangerfield, maybe. I don't know.
Anyway. We got Dog in the chat too.
Oh, Dog. He got wet.
Good to see you, Dog.
Wet dog? Shit. That ain't good. He got wet. Nothing worse than a wet dog. Okay.
Ours got baths today. They killed a critter out back, and so we had to give him a bath.
Oh, they killed a skunk?
No, it was a possum, unfortunately.
Oh no, those things are.
Said it was like you're not supposed to mess with the possums. So the dogs don't really know one critter from another.
Okay, so here's the part I haven't read yet from Omar Colunas. He just sent me a message. Can we go through it here? Okay. When explaining evolution, one would never start talking about the philosophy of science. That's what I said. Okay. So right off the bat, there's just boundless ignorance as far as the eye can see. We shouldn't start with the philosophy of science. The why, the how. Yeah, we shouldn't start with the philosophy of science. We should start with science. I don't know why he has a problem with that. Scott's back. Scott, are you really back? He's kind of back. Okay.
I hope I'm back. I think there's a an access point or something as part of their my son over at my son's house, his Wi-Fi mesh thing to help extend his Wi-Fi to some difficult sections of the house. I think that's going down and interfering with mine somehow.
Yeah, yeah, that's what you think. But the truth of the matter is, scientists just want you to believe in electromagnetism. There really is no such thing. It doesn't work. I mean, obviously, otherwise you wouldn't be bouncing in and out, right?
Yeah, it's Wi-Fi creating pixies that are just flying between our house and the router.
Okay, how do we have access to a mind under your naturalistic paradigm? What the fuck does this have to do with evolution?
Irrelevant.
Do you think JP is listening to any of us? Yes, and considering he even did a panel with you all talking about this stuff, as well as naturalism, I'd reckon that he's listening. Dave is a scientist. We are all well aware of that, Mike. And for him to come on a stream and do nothing but bite ankles, well, you know more about it than they do. A hell of a lot more. You've been listening. When asked legitimate questions or straw man Christianity isn't really helping. I'd like to know how we're straw manning Christianity. That would be interesting. How about you ask your friend to at least, okay, this is all for you, Dave.
The only thing I picked on him about was Noah's Ark. Okay, I was picking on him about Noah's Ark.
Yeah, and that's not a straw man. They really believe in the flood.
Right? Yeah, I said I can't take you seriously, and you can't talk down to me about you don't know science when you're going to talk about the magic zoo boat. I'm sorry, I'm not nice about it. It's nonsense.
Yeah,
it's nonsense.
That sounds like a wonderful name for a kid's educational cartoon, the Magic Zoo Boat.
Magic Zoo Boat, yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, no magic zoo boat. I can't go there. You can't get past there was no global flood. So any regional flood, sure, some people had boats with their animals on it. That's as far as it goes.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but the scientific method is used, blah, 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 and since the theory of evolution is in that category, its validity should be verified using the aforementioned method instead of acting like an absolute ass. How about you actually listening, because I'm starting to think that you blow out nothing but hot air and insults, Mike. It's because you won't drop it when you're told over and over again that this is not going to bring the conversation forward. It's only Jimbob's thing because he thinks he's got a gotcha. That's the only reason he brought up scientific method. He didn't want to know how it applied to evolution. Do you really think Jimbob wanted to know how the scientific method applied to evolution? He wanted to do a gotcha on Dave, and then he wanted to do it on me. He did it on Big Bad Mama. He did it on all of us. Grayson goes on and on the list, right? Did it on oh my God, I can't think of the name right now. Somebody else.
When that Red's rhetoric was on there, he was on it though. Every time he said something, he would say, "No, you're wrong," and he showed him where he was wrong, and he was nailing him. And I mentioned a rabid atheist in the chat there. I think he went off. I think he's got a stream. But, yeah, he doesn't do good, like I said, with Grayson or with Reds or something because they're on it.
Yeah, and if he actually starts listening and talking to you about evolution,
yeah,
he doesn't do very well because he has nowhere to go because now he's lost. A real case in point is where the hell is it here?
And it's a creationist boogeyman because I point out to people, the majority of religious people around the world accept well-established science like scientific theories. Even Islam is at 51%. It's a very slim majority, but we're talking about some repressive areas with little education and everything, and that you still have a majority of the ones that actually get educated a little bit with science and stuff, 51%. So it's not a thing of religion or anything else that the creationists try to make it out to be. That's all nonsense. It's just a boogeyman to try and say, oh, you didn't come from a monkey or all that kind of nonsense. That's all it is.
Like rabid atheists come up with, there's a certain kind of science that they do as creationists called, we're going to call it gotcha science. It's gotcha science. So like in science, okay, in genetics, we'll find something that doesn't quite fit with, what we thought was going on. And so we have a mystery. Or in cosmology with the James Webb telescope, we'll find something out about distant galaxies that we didn't expect. And for them, that's all they have to do is repeat that over and over again. Oh, there's something that didn't work out according to the hypothesis. And they call it, and that's called gotcha science, because from that they derive the conclusion that the entire theory is wrong because there's a little gotcha. Well, those gotchas, which we've had over and over in genetics, invariably have a solution. We just have to look deeper, learn more, rearrange a few things, dot a few I's, cross a few T's. And we've done it every single time. And that's why evolution is the strongest theory that science has, basically. Because it
And
always
being wrong adds to the body of knowledge. So if you test something, you think, hey, Jello's going to cure what itches under your armpit, and it doesn't work. The next person knows, hey, that doesn't work, right? And you can look somewhere else for whatever is going to cure the itch in your armpit. Okay. So there's a lot of wrong that goes on all the time. There's a lot of things that lead nowhere. There's a lot of, trails for this and trails for that. And they think they've got this figured out, and then it doesn't work. But that's okay, because that helps eliminate things so that the next people don't have to keep repeating the same thing over and over that they already figured out doesn't work.
Hey, so old Joe has a Sasquatch sighting for you.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, forward it.
All hail Bigfoot. gmail.com. Send it to me.
Well, I'm not going to make a joke about cops and minorities, but I could. Anyway, bad joke. Okay, so Jimbob said something to me. Okay, I said, want to talk about probability. And what I want to talk about is, what are the odds that a welder in bumfuck USA comes up with a refutation of the millions of trained biologists who work in the field? That's what I want to talk about. What is the probability that Jimbob is up for a Nobel Prize? I mean, what do you think? Just about zero. That's what the probability I want to talk about. Anyway, Jimbob,
well, he answers back, well, scientists have been proven wrong before.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, but usually by other scientists, not by a welder.
There's a quality that I only heard this term like when I was in seminary, but it really applies here, and I think any good scientist would also have it. It's called epistemic humility.
Yeah.
It means that I'm confident in what I believe, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And that's not just a distant, tiny possibility.
Yeah.
And if a scientist is proven wrong and now we have a better answer, that's a good thing.
Or even if we have no answer, let's say we're wrong about this one hypothesis, this one prediction, and it's wrong, and we look around and go, I don't know what's going on. Well, at least there's a fresh field of inquiry that you can engage in. So even not having the answers is a good thing.
That's a Ken Ham special. Him and his Answers News and all the people that give all their talks. That's what they specialize in, is finding some article about scientists have basically changed their minds. Aha. Well, but, of course, they're leaving out, well, this is why they changed their minds, because they dug up a bone or something. And, well, they had to change their minds. They got new evidence. But every time they do it, they make it sound like now all of science is wrong because somebody dug up a bone somewhere to prove that, this dinosaur actually lived over here too, And, well, see, now all of science is wrong. You got to throw it all away and start over. Yeah, that's their game they play.
Yeah. So anyway, he wrote me this weird thing, which I'm still puzzling over because he is so brilliant that it's really hard for me to figure out what he's saying. The odds of two related mutations are the product of their individual probabilities. At least he got that right, which is very low. For example, the odds of 2 mutations are 1 in 117, 107 times. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about there.
Are we to assume he means beneficial mutation?
I know we're going to get to that.
Okay, all right.
Yes, 100 trillion. The odds of 3 mutations in a row are 1 billion trillion. So he thinks that there has to be like one beneficial mutation, then another one right in a row, and that it's just so, his thinking is so twisted that it leaves me.
Yeah, he needs to read more so that he has a better knowledge base from which to, if he was actually wanting to make calculations that mean something, he would have a better knowledge base to do it from.
Right. And it's just ridiculous. Okay. Between any parent and their child, there's anywhere from 30 to 100 mutations, right? These are just changes. Most of those are neutral. Some of those are going to make little differences. Like, I don't know if you knew it or not, but some people have biceps that hook into their bone in like just a millimeter further than other people, and they can naturally curl a bigger weight than the person next to them, right? Those are very, very small changes that can happen with as little as one mutation. That could happen, right? But he's got this whole beneficial, neutral, like he thinks neutral mutations are never going to be beneficial. He thinks deleterious mutations are always going to be deleterious. And that we have to have a series of beneficial mutations all in a row in order to make something happen, which is kind of like
you have to get a straight flush or it doesn't count.
Right. It's a real naive way of thinking.
Or it's like the wing on a bird. They said, well, how did it evolve a wing? It's like it wasn't evolving a wing. It just worked out that way.
Yeah.
It was insulation, then it was beneficial for gliding or breaking a fall. And then, there are ways that it developed, and it eventually developed for, success in flight.
They wanted the point A to point B.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it didn't go that way. These things just kind of worked out.
So it's like either or thinking, and it's like linear thinking.
Well, and as we know with people with so many health issues too, a lot of stuff isn't all that perfect. There's still things that are trying to evolve to be better, or you're just kind of stuck with things that are weak here and there, like with the weakness in our abdomen because of our gonads moving out, and that's why you get hernias. So you're kind of stuck with it.
So it's really hard to visualize, but we got the genome, right? So this is the genome up here, a bunch of chromosomes, okay? And if they're split up, like we have 22 chromosomes, and then we have the X and the Y. Anyway, so what happens is this whole thing is sort of a churning mess of I don't like the word machinery, but you can kind of think of it that way. And Scott's typing.
Not anymore.
Yeah, you quit as soon as I call you on it. That's
true. That's true. I'm just so used to typing, things and comments. I do apologize once again for any distraction I may have caused.
Yeah, like I'll hear Thor in the other room screaming and just hissing and yelling, and then I'll run in, and there's Snack with his arms around Thor, looking at me like, "What? I'm just giving him a hug." And it's like, I wasn't doing nothing. Like, you're the same way. You're just like Snack. Anyway, so there's this thing about an embryo developing, right, where it's one cell and 2 cells and then 4 cells and whatever, and this genome is like a really complicated mess of stuff. And if we have like one little mutation here, right, it may or may not affect some step in this development as we go to the human being, which is me. That's a picture of me. Okay. Oh, I'm kind of fat. So anyway, I'm getting fat. I gain weight. Anyway, so this basically there's this wild stochastic process, that a genome goes through, and there's a whole big story in here. There's the gene itself, and then there's the regulatory part of the gene right here, right? And then there's like upstream regulatory parts. And if any of these things mutate, like a regulatory part, or if this gets a little bit wider, if we have an insertion or something, it's going to change the amount of this protein that gets created from this one gene, right? And genes don't always create proteins, but oftentimes that's what we're interested in. And it's going to create a protein, and that protein is going to have a certain shape, and it's going to do a certain thing. And if this little mutation here, okay, goes all the way through the process and it modifies this regulatory sequence so that this protein is produced at 1% less than another protein, well, then we could have a bone. I better draw a picture of the bone. So we got a bone, dog bone, doggy bone. Okay, picture of a bone. It looks like an ass. Anyway, so we got a bone and we got a muscle attachment, right? So normally the muscle attaches there, but because this protein right here uh, happens 1% less, that muscle may attach a little bit further up that bone up here, right? And if that happens, that muscle is going to be stronger. Now, that organism may have about 5 kids, right? And then those kids may have about three, each have 5 kids. And in the end, maybe about 5 or 6 of those have this mutation that created that slightly stronger bicep. Now, that slightly stronger bicep in that particular animal may result in that animal surviving a little bit longer than its siblings, or in maybe impressing some mate basically a little bit more so that he mates a little bit more and ends up putting more of these genes into the future. And eventually that will become a thing, and that would be a beneficial mutation. Okay. But now, what could have happened is that there was a mutation here and a mutation there and a mutation there, and they didn't have that effect, right? But going down a few generations, there's another protein that interacts with this protein. And the fact that those 2 mutations were there, and this one had another mutation in the protein, all added up to create that beneficial mutation. So we would have neutral, 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 and then all of a sudden it would turn into a beneficial mutation. And then that might spread through the population. Now, there's a very good chance that it wouldn't spread through the population, that these guys are unlucky. A tree dropped on the guy that had the better bones, right? And then that gene gets wiped out. I mean, this shit, it's stochastic and it's immensely complicated what happens in evolution. And you can't ask dumb questions like, oh, how do you apply the scientific method to what I just said? Well, okay. If you want to know how we know about regulatory proteins, then we can pull up a paper. Then we can talk about the scientific method for that one little piece. But you can see what a small piece that is. You have questions, guys? Questions? Anything? Questions?
I was just going to say, I'll at least give credit to people like some of the people on Donnie Deal's channels where they have a specific argument.
Yeah, they do.
Even if it's wrong,
right,
or not proven or anything else, they're at least trying to, like you're saying, okay, pick out the problem you have in evolution. Not that, the terminology for this is not the philosophical equivalent of the word salad, blah, blah, blah. But who cares? It's like you said, you got libraries full of all these papers and all these tests and everything. You have to pick out a specific of, no, I don't think this gene does this or something
right,
like that.
Right. Yeah, something very specific. Then you can criticize it. But I mean, like when I was on Jimbob's channel, I asked him, if you took the theory of evolution and wrote it out on 8.5 by 11 paper, how high would the stack be? And I think the answer is 1,000 feet or so, or maybe more, or possibly even like the moon. I'm not sure. It would be a big theory. Anyway, but that's basically how mutations work. And for the most part, when a mutation happens in our genome, because it's 90% junk, and that has if you listen to creation myths, had a few things on junk DNA, and somebody else had a thing on junk DNA just recently, but they did a really good job. And basically, 90% of it doesn't matter, and those are neutral mutations. But that doesn't mean that somewhere along the line, a little piece of that junk DNA isn't going to turn into a viable gene, create a protein, and have some sort of effect on us. Like, yeah, Star Song, the single cell parasite that genome testing shows. What? It's a form of. What is that? What is that? Oh, I want to know more about that stuff.
Well, I think isn't that a thing with Tasmanian devils or something like that? Like I don't know where they live, but that there's it's a dog-like species anyway, and they get cancer by contact with one another by fighting. And,
Really?
yeah, it's a transmissible cancer.
Somebody like Mr. Anderson or somebody brought that up in an argument with Sygart.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember.
When they were talking about the difference between viruses and cancer or something, and then somebody brought up, but wait a minute, there is a virally transmitted cancer. And he was like, huh.
Yeah, that was kind of a big thing 20 or 30 years ago. Looking now, I've got a friend that's working on the idea that schizophrenia is from a virus, from a what is the cold sore virus? Herpes. I believe from a herpes virus, because herpes has the habit of hanging out in neurons, and they're working on this entire research program out in upstate New York on possibility that schizophrenia, some of it is caused by a virus, which is really interesting. You get a vaccine for schizophrenia. I don't know. Might be really naiving her research. So sorry, Kayla. She just had her first paper published, by the way. I'm pretty proud of her. Anyway. Stretch Ron Jeremy is a cryptid. What? Ron Jeremy is a cryptid. I believe Ron Jeremy is a cryptid. Let's see. He's only 3 feet tall. Is that why his dick looks so big? Don't ask me how that. Don't ask.
You just don't really want to know how short some people are in real life when they make them bigger than life in the movies. But unfortunately, well, I don't know. It's unfortunately, it just is what it is. Yeah, a lot of these folks aren't that tall. Sylvester Stallone, not that tall.
Yeah, it's amazing when you see him alongside somebody else.
Don Adams, when he did Get Smart, literally had to stand on a little stool.
No shit.
To do the close-up shots with 99 because she was an ex-model or something. She was very tall.
Yeah.
And literally they had to put him up on a step. They avoided the close-up shots, and they would, camera angles and everything, so you didn't see it as much. But
Oh, let's see here.
But don't believe everything you see in the movies. That's not what it's for.
Yep. Is anybody watching Chaos on Netflix with a K?
I started watching it today. It's pretty good. It had
they fucked up. There's something wrong with the writing overall, but it ends up being pretty entertaining as you get further into it. I got 2 episodes left.
I don't like Tom Cruise. They're amateur. Anybody but Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise is 5'7", and I'm 5'7", and I'm pretty short. So Tom Cruise is not very tall. Anyway,
not a very good actor.
I put a link in the private chat real quick.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
Description. Okay, I don't know if you saw it today, but it kind of went over a study that showed like how something like 930,000 years ago there was a really severe bottleneck.
Yep.
But it talked about the method it used, and that was using is there a thing called SNPs, which is like these neutral mutations, in the alleles, and doing kind of a comparison of it. It was really fascinating, and something you said reminded me of it today. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I was watching that earlier. So, what the hell did I do with? Oh, there it is. Okay, I lost my.
Dog says Cruz is only 1 foot 8 inches.
Well, before he got into Scientology, he was a little bit taller than that. But you shrink when you get dumb. Keep that in mind, Jimbob. Trying to help you.
I don't think he's very tall either. I saw those pictures when he was in Miami. He doesn't look very tall either.
I become really interested in the Eastern Orthodox or Russian Orthodox Church. They have something called theosis, which is becoming like God, as like God as you can. And I'm actually, I looked up the churches. I was thinking about going to this divine liturgy, but they've got a lot of dogma. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is the spiritual environment that a church presents. And so I might actually go to one of these things because I think it's kind of cool, because I'm on a bit of a journey that I would describe as achieving theosis is kind of what I would like in my life, basically. To be this, I guess you'd call it godlike.
I always thought the Catholic style things were neat, all the rituals and everything and stuff. I mean, now it seems to me like to be excess, but it does have a certain appeal.
We used to go to this midnight mass for Christmas, I think it was, and it was just really cool. I mean, with the stained glass windows and the candles and the choir and all that. I mean, it was just awesome. I always enjoyed that, because it was like Ellen Watts said, if he had to be a Christian, if he were a Christian, he would pick Catholicism, the old style of Catholicism where they spoke in Latin, because it gave you a feeling of holiness. It gave you that spiritual feeling. You didn't understand what the fuck they were saying, because if you understood what they were saying, it would have screwed it up.
Well, yeah, when they use it in the movies and stuff, it gives you that powerful feeling or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and that the choir in the background all the time. You always hear the choir. So anyway, I think I'm done talking. Kids Remembrance. What is that? What is Kids Remembrance? Change journey, dude. Let's see.
Change your journey, Kids Redemption. I don't know. Dog has something going on. He wants to share with us, I think.
What are you going on there, dog? Come on in.
Or is it Doug and you just left out the U?
I think it's dog.
Dog.
You gotta read it backwards.
Yeah, you gotta read it backwards.
Yeah, okay.
Capital G.
Yep.
Edud Yanush Tuai.
Yep.
Ignach. Now I get it.
I'm making a trip up north next week on the 11th for 3 days.
Way up north.
Way up north. Going, probably going to be tripping at one point, but we're going to be going to what used to be called Iron World. It's a place where they have all kinds of historical documents, including the manifest of my grandpa coming over on a boat called the Kaiser Wilhelm in 1898 and all that shit. So I'm going to go look up some history of my family and other families. And
that's pretty cool, getting into your genealogy. I won't say genetics, but genealogy.
Yeah. And the other cool thing about the Iron Range is, like, when we grew up, there was Gilbert, Minnesota. Well, when my dad grew up, there was something called Sparta, Minnesota, which was a big city, a big main street and hardware stores and stores, all the Sears Roebucks. And they completely moved that city from Sparta to Gilbert. And then they dug a big hole where Sparta used to be. So all over up there are these little communities that the mine shut down and moved. And they just recently moved our highway because they wanted to dig it up. And they built this incredible bridge. I got to show you this, man. It's just an incredible bridge. And the state of Minnesota paid for the bridge. I think it was like $700 million that they paid for the bridge. And the bridge, okay, basically there's Virginia, Minnesota. Oh, God, we got to draw a picture. Okay, Virginia, Minnesota, Virginia, and Eveleth, Minnesota right here, right? And Highway 53 goes all the way from Duluth up here, and it went to Virginia, and it went that way, right? So what they wanted to do is get rid of this whole section right here, right? So they built a bridge where it goes off this way, and it goes way out here, and then it comes back around, and then it hooks up to this thing and goes that way, right?
Is that whole blue line a bridge?
No. There's
okay. All right, you're confusing me.
there's a huge ore pit right here, right? That's about 700 feet deep or 1,000 feet deep, right? So basically, or no, it doesn't go that far. Shit, I fucked up. Okay, there's a big ore pit right here outside of Virginia. Right there. It's a giant pit. It looks like a giant valley. And the bridge to nowhere goes right here. So the bridge to nowhere.
You're talking about Virginia, Minnesota.
Virginia, Minnesota, yeah. And so so it used to be like 3 miles to go to Virginia. Now it's 5 miles to go to Virginia because you got to way out here, way around there, and back again. I call it the bridge to nowhere and back again because it's like, what the fuck, what the fuck, people. Anyway, that cost the state of Minnesota $700 million so that the mines could dig $1 billion worth of ore out of that little spot right there. You know,
got to get it wherever you can, I guess.
Yeah, and eventually Virginia's going to be gone. My hometown's going to be gone. Used to be a thriving community. Now it's about 200 people. Used to have about 1,000. Well, that's kind of thriving. Had a Johnny Anderson Chevrolet, but not anymore.
Ooh.
Not anymore. Yeah. And we used to have Cirquenix grocery store and Max Bar in the Bon Air. Now they're all gone.
Dollar General?
No Dollar General. Max Bar just shut down. Now there's only one bar in that town, Legion. And for an Iron Range town, usually we have one bar per 15 people. Yep, it's amazing.
I watch some of those videos of the guys traveling around towns that are ghost or almost ghost towns. Some of them only have a few people living in them. It's really,
that's
really
that is a cool thing.
Eerie. Yeah.
That's the cool thing about Virginia, Minnesota is when I was a little tiny boy, and I don't even remember this, Virginia used to be this big. It went all the way over there. And so my dad would take us chokecherry picking out in this ghost town up here on this side of the pit. And then they dug that big pit there and they truncated Virginia. So like there's like 2nd Avenue and then there's 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue. But then when you go this way, it's 1st Avenue and then Pitt. You know, just I mean, there's all this history that they just completely dug up and destroyed. And it gone. Kind of pissed me off. Anyway.
What do they dig for there?
Iron ore.
Iron.
Yeah, that's where all your iron comes from, or most of that. It's probably the biggest. I think it's pretty sure it's the biggest supplier of iron in the world. There's iron in China and iron in South America. But all the companies that started in Minnesota, northern Minnesota, went down to South America and started mines down there.
Is it because there's a lot of uplift there or something that there's a lot of iron?
There's an ancient ocean that basically were a combination of bacteria and high concentration of iron ions. Basically, this iron condensed out of that and formed this layer called the range. And then it tilted. So it tilted from Lake Superior west. So the further west they go, the deeper they have to dig for it. And then there's also taconite, which is low grade iron ore, and that's primarily what they mine now. And then they run it through a plant and they concentrate it into a concentrated iron ore. These taconite pellets. But yeah, it's a pretty big thing up there. I mean, it's kind of incredible. Kind of incredible. Let's see.
How long has it been running?
They discovered ore, I think, in 1890 something, in Mountain Iron, Minnesota, my hometown. The Hall Rust mine is. Let me see if I got a. Let's see what I can do here. Our little window. Chroma. Okay, the Hall Rust mine is right there. Let me see if I can. That is kind of what it looks like. I wish I could. Can I blow that up? Oh, plus. It's kind of a. It's just a. It's. I think it's the biggest open pit in the world, and it just goes on forever. And there's all this beautiful blue water at the bottom of it. You know. That I don't think you can see my cursor, but anyway, that's kind of what it looks like where I come from.
I see the blue. Is it blue because it's clear, or is it blue because of
Clear.
the minerals?
Oh, the water is very clear. It's very, very pure spring water that comes really deep from the underground. And it's got an electric blue, and you could see for like 20 feet, 30 feet down into the water. It's really a weird experience to have water that clear. And it's pretty cool. And they keep pumping it out of the pit so that they can go down there and dig. And then when they quit pumping, the pit fills up and it becomes like a 800-foot deep lake where they let loose a bunch of trout out there and people go trout fishing. So.
Sounds like a great place to hide bodies.
Oh, actually, yeah, that's what they did. Exactly that. A decapitated body found in Mountain Iron, Minnesota, one of the pits. Anyway, yeah, they do that. Yeah.
They've been finding a lot of stuff in some of these areas where the water's drying up.
Yeah, where it comes out.
Yeah, cars and all kind of stuff.
Yep. Anyway.
Stay hidden forever, that's for sure.
Yep. So what else, guys? What else should we talk about? Anything else?
I got nothing.
Did I talk about my sadness about the race? I mean, I'm really sad about.
Yeah, you were really. Yeah, that's right. That's the topic of this.
Yeah,
we haven't touched on that.
Yeah,
Mike is very sad.
Very sad. There were 500 people listening to Jimbob, and like 90% of them seem to be following him like he is some sort of an intellectual god, and he has overturned evolution, and he knows the answer to everything. And these people are so ignorant, and they're just following them single file. And I'm really sad about that because I don't understand how they can be this, how they can think like they do. I didn't know that. I guess I'd forgotten that there were people that were that ignorant. I don't, and finding out has really left me sad for the possibility of the human race. And I'm 73 years old, and I'm kind of glad that I'm not going to be around that long. Because
somewhere between 25 and 40% of the American population are the same people or the same numbers, percent of the population, which I think are exactly the same people, are the ones that have problems with medical issues like we had a few years ago that I don't want to mention on YouTube, but everybody knows the big medical nasty that we had a few years ago.
Yeah.
Climate change, evolution, any of these transgender, any of these issues you go down the list of, it's always that same 25 to 40% of our population.
Yeah. How the hell are we going to survive with this kind of ignorance? And why isn't our educational system? I think education is up against religion. And religion is trying with everything they can to fuck it up. Like Ken Ham got these.
when I was still talking with Brett, her husband got mad at me when I said that something like creationists just want to pat themselves on the back. Well, go ahead, claps for you or something like that. It's like, oh, well, evolution is just stupid. Okay. And then what are they being taught in all the biology classes as schools are starting their sessions this time of year? It's still in the textbooks. So
this guy right here in, I think at about the 80s, 1980s, defending the Christian faith, basic training for defending the faith. And he's talking to a bunch of college juniors, right? Or high school students. And he's trying to tell them how they can talk to their professor and show how dumb their professor is, because their professor is this atheistic evolutionist, whatever, you know.
Well, Ham and Hovind and all the rest too. They're all, you know, what, it's 70 years old or so. Yeah, they go back to the 70s. You know, you see all of Hovind's old stuff. He's in his 70s suit and everything.
So these guys are pitted up against religion, and they're fighting, and they're doing their damnedest to make sure that we stay as ignorant as we are. And how much of this did we listen to last time? I think we got to around 18. But listen to this.
Whatsoever. And you can talk to your milkman, or you can talk to the philosophy professor about anything they want to talk about, and the same problems are going to arise. By human experience, we simply mean all those things that we believe and do, all those things that we say, all of our conduct, all of our attitudes. And so that you can take your roommate in college and deal with anything that's part of his or her experience and challenge them to make it intelligible. Now, what do we mean by make it intelligible? Which philosophy of reality, knowledge, and ethics can take those things which we believe and do in human experience and make them intelligible? And by that we mean make sense of them or see them as meaningful. Perhaps the easiest way to illustrate this would be to talk about an ethical belief. If you have a roommate or a professor who says that...
Okay, this is the guy that pretty much invented the playbook for presuppositionals. Well, he wasn't the only one. There were some philosophers, but he's the guy that basically got out there and spread it around. And Jimbob loves Bonson. Okay, he thinks he's brilliant. But now what he's doing is he's setting them up, the students, to go against their professor. So that's what he's doing.
A certain kind of activity, maybe oppressing the poor, is immoral. What you're going to be asking is, well, now, Professor, what outlook on reality, knowledge, and ethics will make what you've just said about oppressing the poor meaningful? Let's assume that we are in the worldview of evolution. Materialistic, atheistic evolution. What is man? That's one of the questions having to do with reality.
Okay, pause that for a second. Does this guy ever say how he defines meaningful? Because that's one of those words where I can mean one thing, you can mean one thing, and now he means one thing in a particular philosophical or theological way that I may say, well, that's not what I mean by meaningful. In fact, it's not a meaningful word for me, meaningful definition for me. So there's all these trap words, and that if you're not a presuppositionalist, you don't necessarily have to set up your worldview that way.
Yeah, it's like, oh, shucks, everybody knows what meaning means, right? Everybody knows what meaningful means, you know. So, yeah, he's going to explain the contrast.
What is man? Well, the answer here is man is...
right here.
Well, one of the advanced animals, really. He is just a primordial slime that is developed by chance over eons and eons and is now somehow miraculously, except we can't have miracles in an atheistic worldview. Oh, no. Miraculously, somehow, we're still trying to figure it out, has become this complicated creature that we see.
Pretty
Okay.
freaking amazing, isn't
Now,
it?
if you're
That's pretty amazing. I think that story is amazing.
It is.
They make it sound like, oh, you're just some slime. Well, it's like, okay, we started out as slime, and look now, look at us. That's pretty
the American
amazing
story. You can start out as slime and end up as an apex
Yeah.
mammal.
Like a miracle. I think it's a miracle, but it's just.
I think he's kind of a communist if he doesn't believe in America.
I know.
Well, Scott just pointed out, we might not be here if our genome had gotten any smaller.
Yep.
So, we're not immune. It's pure arrogance, but we're not immune.
Yeah. This next part is.
Professor says that is man. Man is in this universe all alone in a cold, impersonal universe, and that somehow, miraculously, the primordial slime developed into, how does it go? Through the fish and all this kind of stuff. And then finally comes out looking like this.
Well, we're not very far from the fish if you listen to this man.
So I think implicit in his advice to young college students is to poison the well and create straw men.
And don't listen to the professor.
We're trying to establish meaning or what somebody finds as meaningful, but all he's doing is setting up straw men and poisoning the well.
Yeah.
And interrupting class for students that may be paying a lot of money to go to a university to not have somebody standing up and pulling a Ken Ham saying, "Were you there?"
Now, think about what he's setting them up to say, "Yeah, professor, so if you're so smart, and then come up with a gotcha for the professor." This is exactly where Jimbob got his playbook. And he actually references Bonson. But that's the playbook.
Mm-hmm.
To come up with these little, professor, if you're so smart, how do we arrive? And the professor said, and then he strawmans the professor saying, we're primordial ooze that just, happened, that lives in a cold, lifeless, meaningless universe. Well, the universe is not meaningless because there are human beings. And human beings have this whole meaning thing going on, right? So obviously, it's not a lifeless, we have life, and not a meaningless universe because humans have meaning. So fuck you. It's a straw man.
And there's thousands of religions have come and gone that gave people lots of meaning as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Didn't make him any less or not true to those people at that time and at that place, because that's how they lived their lives.
He goes on for another 29 minutes. Anyway, so my point is that the only hope we have is to educate people, to understand science, to understand neuroscience, to understand what man really is, to understand how man works, how our fucking brains work, how emotions and how our dicks get in the way of being a man. We have to understand all of that. And the only way to do that is by educating the masses, and you start out educating the young. But they want to stop that right now with Trump, with Project 2025. They want to stop that right now, throw a wrench in that. And they want to set us back 100 years again. And we're already 200 years behind where we should be. A technological society should not believe that some dude got pinned to a fucking stick of wood and 3 days later crawled out of his grave. Jesus Christ, people. That the fucking Noah rode a flood around where the fountains of the deep were blasting to the moon. It's just like, my God, what are we going to do? I'm so sad.
And people, religion's not going to disappear overnight. And even if mainstream religions kind of fade away, people are always going to have some kind of beliefs in a lot of different things. And
crystal,
some version, of a higher power or whatever. And it's like, again, I'll grant you God, I'll grant you Jesus, I'll grant you Muhammad, I'll grant you all these different religions and all their people and all their prophets. And evolution still happens. So that's why the majority of people that are religious accept well-established science, because they just say, like most of us do, oh, well, science learns something new, but it doesn't change that I believe in God, and when I die, I'm going to go to heaven, and, you know, what have you. It doesn't change any of that.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, and
They're setting up a war. I don't think we have the war on the other side. The war is always that, you know, they're coming after you and all this stuff. And it's like, no, it's not, because through all of this, except for these creationist organizations, even the Catholic Church, you know, had to do a 180 on many things and step into the times and say, well, yeah, evolution happens. And now they're even saying, oh, well, yeah, you know, same sex can get married. You know, let God sort it out, right? And it's like, okay, fair enough, you know?
yeah. Yeah, the war is being fought not by us, but by them. We don't have a coalition. We just got a bunch of random people trying to talk sense to these fucking nutcakes that are trying to mount a revolution. And God, that Project 2025, the more I hear about it, the scarier it is. It just sounds like exactly what Hitler was doing in Nazi Germany in 1938, 1936 and 38. And it's like, holy shit, they're actually doing this in real time today in 2024. And we're all sitting here thinking that, oh, it's just like any other election. No, it ain't.
You're not saying that when Donald Trump said you'll never have to vote again, that it wasn't a slip of the tongue?
I think it was actually a slip of the tongue. And but the kind of he slipped up and letting a cat out of the bag.
Yeah, they want a dictator, and they want all political offices filled with appointees. So no more Congress, senators, governors, mayors. No, they're all gone. They're going to be people that the dictator decides to put in all these positions. That's pretty scary.
Yep. We need a dictator. Anyway.
And again, we're talking about the 25 to 40% that will say, yeah, we don't want most subjects taught to the kids. So, you know, forget almost all your classes. And
they're appealing to all these little fears, like fear of losing our culture, fear of using the wrong pronouns.
Yeah, whose culture?
Yeah, exactly.
They forget our culture is the great melting pot, right?
It's us.
That is our culture.
And culture changes. For God's sake, let it fucking change. You know, I was sitting down.
And that's why our tacos are a little bit different, and our pizza's a little bit different, and our sausages are a little bit different, right? We do our own thing here.
Do our own thing. Fucking pineapple.
That's okay. Yeah, just don't put the pineapple on the pizza.
Don't put the pineapple.
Let's stir everybody up.
Yeah. So I get a pizza from Domino's, and one slice is enough to put you in coronary intensive care. I do double bacon, double pepperoni, double sausage, jalapenos, green pepper, mushrooms, extra cheese. When I get the fucker, the crust is there, and then there's about 5 inches of fucking toppings on top of it, right? It's like, yeah. I wonder why my...
You know, I was saying a long time ago, people asked me decades ago why I care about people like Ken Ham, and it's like, because of their influence. And now they've got like another generation of these ones that are growing up with it. And now with the new push, they're going to go for another generation where they're targeting people with all this nonsense about scientists being the enemy, anybody on the on the left is demonic and everything else. And then you've got, Trump feeding right into it, saying stuff not like, oh yeah, they're letting in democratic states after abortion or after birth you can have abortion and all this kind of stuff. Who can say this kind of awful nonsense and get away with it? And then people are, oh yeah, and they're repeating it everywhere. And it's like, seriously, what's wrong with you? What is the competition to outdo each other on who can say the most outrageously nonsensical things and get a bunch of people to agree with it? They were just talking, whose stream was it? Slipping my mind, but they were talking about getting people to put Vegemite on your face when you're in Australia as some kind of rite of passage or something. And then, it was the drop bears. That's what it was. So then it was on Slim Stream. So then the drop bears would actually come and get you, which were the koala bears. And what they were doing was they were attracted to the Vegemite on your face. So what you got to do is to protect yourself from the drop bears, you got to put a fork in your head and put some toothpaste behind your ear. And I'm like, it gets to a point where you're like, how many stupid things can we get these people to do?
Right.
Yeah. And people are just like, oh yeah, well I better put the toothpaste. Okay, fork him. Yeah, so the koalas won't drop out of the trees on you if you have a fork in your hair.
So, okay, this is one of Jimbob's fans, I think. Mike, you are far too confident about your interaction with Jimbob. Although I don't agree with his style of ridicule. Thank you. So it makes me so happy to know that somebody listening to him is a little bit put off by some of his bullshit. His points about meaning, causality, and teleology are going over your head. No. I've been studying philosophy for a long time. I'm an old man. I've been studying science for a long time. If you want to have a talk, I will explain to you why it is not going over my head. I can talk to you about meaning, causality, and teleology until the cows come home. Are your cows home, Scott?
Hey, I can even grant a God.
The cows are nestled in their home quite comfortably.
I've gotten to the point where I'm not even going to argue God anymore. If there's some super being that exists outside of our universe that doesn't interact with us in any way, shape, or form that we can detect, then for all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist. It doesn't make any difference. Unless, which is the main argument, you're going to find out when you die. Well, we're all going to find out then, aren't we?
Hey, certainty still exists. I am dying to have a peaceful, normal conversation with one of you. My
Sure.
email, my mike.bruzenak@gmail.com. I can put it in here. Get in touch with me and we'll set up a talk, and we can do it live or we can do it in private if you want. And I would love to have a one-on-one conversation with a Jimbob fan. It's somebody that thinks he's actually making sense. So I'll put my email in here.
Ultimately for me, it's I hear Darth Dawkins or anybody else that without the God and the Christian God, nothing makes sense, and that's what Jimbob says. That's like,
yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, but I don't get that from reading the Bible, and I just don't. I don't. Sorry.
And if you start reading epistemology, you'll find out that that's one particular idea called foundationalism, that you have to have a foundation to justify. And nobody has ever pulled that off, because foundationalism eventually leads to solipsism or last Thursdayism. You cannot be certain of any foundation. You can always undermine a foundation. And what people of faith do, or people that are believers, I'm a person of faith, so I don't do that. But what believers do is they solve the problem by inventing a solution to the problem, right? They have an ad hoc, post hoc solution to the problem of foundations. And that's all you're doing. And why you believe in it, okay, I guess that's up to you. You probably have other reasons. But that does not solve the goddamn problem. Because every time you go listen to, what the hell's his name? He was just here. He's going to solve the problem of God tonight. What's his name?
Taco.
Breakfast. tacos, right? Go listen to Breakfast Tacos. He takes the naturalistic world and basically puts it in the same verbiage as you put your God in, and he shows you that you can put anything into that X, into that holder, that thing that justifies foundation, your foundation, right? You can do anything you want. You can choose anything you want. And that is a naive metaphysical idea that basically you can make up a solution to your fucking problem. And it doesn't work that way. You don't have any more of a foundation than I do. None of us have a foundation. We all exist in a coherent network of knowledge. We find ourselves on this earth, adults that we are, with all of this knowledge and all of this stuff around us, and that's all we got, right? When you get used to that, then you understand what faith really is. So, but I'd love to talk to you. Please email me, and we'll have a normal talk. Yeah, transcendental categories. Okay, that was yeah, and, which is another form of foundationalism, basically. But yeah, transcendentals are interesting. That there has to be something basically that allows you to create the concepts that you create, to perceive as you do. And you could look at Wilfrid Sellars, and you can look at the myth of the given, and you can start there and start reading about epistemology and find out what all these problems are and how they hash out. And none of those guys are believers. Sellars and his dad were atheists, dyed-in-the-wool atheists. So anyway, but we could have a talk. None of us have a foundation. No, there's nothing under there. You're floating on this magic carpet of epistemos. The magic carpet is named epistemos. That's what I would name it. And it's this coherent bit of knowledge, but it is so fucking solid that you can have complete faith in it. You can have everything but the certainty word. The certainty word is a religious idea. You're just making stuff up to put in its place to explain the transcendentals. You're doing what Kant said you couldn't do, that you can never access the phenomena. You can only access the phenomena. Ah, my goodness. I have talked to you? When have I talked to you? No. Certainly.
I said something about your sentiment is apparent in other streams and stuff. I was talking about this earlier, that when we do other things or make videos and stuff like that, it's not, if it's talking about a specific person or an organization, it's talking about them. But when we have discussions with people, we're perfectly happy to have discussions with people. It's not the same thing.
We got to say goodbye to Scott. Goodbye, Scott.
All right, Scott.
Goodbye, Scott. Scott's leaving.
It's the same thing. Like I say, you going back and forth in the chat and stuff, and it's okay, whatever and stuff. But you're gonna talk to somebody, like say, trying to talk to Jimbob, and he ends every sentence with dummy, stupid, and after a while, you're just like, hey, fuck off, man.
Yes, trying to refute trying to talk at all basically assumes transcendental categories. We are of a certain nature, right? But you can look around at the body of knowledge that we do have, and you can trust in it. Like if you were to start weaving, if you put a thread across your room, like say 12 feet up, a thread across a chasm, right? Like just a standard cloth fiber thread. You put one thread across. I would not walk across that. I don't know if you would. But you put another thread and another thread and another thread. And there's a point where you have a strong carpet. And that's how found herentism works, basically. And that's what we're stuck with. And there's nothing that you can come up with. Even your ideas about transcendentals. Kant showed very definitively that you can never access that noumena, that you cannot grasp it in any way. You're always stuck with the transcendental categories. So you may as well just accept them and have faith in them. And not all you're doing is making up a God that accounts for them. I can make anything up that accounts for them too. So you have to allow me the same freedom to make shit up, right? Anyway, we got to end, Dave. Are you here, Dave? Time to end. Yeah, time to shoot an head. Yep. Anyway, do come talk to me. I mean, it will be. I'm sure we could at least have a reasonable conversation. You could tell me about transcendentals and how they work. Welcome.
And I just want to say, as far as like the evolution thing goes, it's a scientific theory, along with a lot of other scientific theories that scientists use because they're so well established. They can use it like evolutionary theory to make cures and treatments for people. You're using theories to use the internet. You're using theories all the time because they have been so well tested and established. There's no reason for everybody to test them every single time. And you can check out like what the work that Jay Bundy does. They can use these things in computer models now and everything, and they make predictions and they work out because it's so well established. They're not, it's, if you want to believe in some, spiritual origin or whatever, that's fine. But like Big Bad Mama was pointing out on a stream earlier, even creationists have to have a form of evolution after Noah's Ark to get all the species. And they'll use all the same language you had to have mutations and natural selection to get all the species we have. So it's accepted. It's just some kind of silly issue to argue about that goes absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, and it doesn't have anything to do with religion. I mean, if you really had
none whatsoever
proper religion, if you had a proper understanding of how little you would understand about your God, given your religion, you would understand that evolution is a possibility in creation, and you wouldn't be making a big thing out of it because it's just fucking ridiculous. And a lot of theists roll that way. They just say, well, evolution is true.
And even the big apologists like William Lane Craig have adopted pretty much they accept the mainstream science, including evolution. They just put in that Adam and Eve were like the first religious or spiritual people. Okay, fine. They were the first two people that started a religion. That doesn't change anything. You can still have your science, you can still have your beliefs. So setting up these arguments that it's Christians against atheists or all the scientists are in some kind of conspiracy is nonsense, because if they wanted to keep us all quiet, the last thing the scientists would have gave us would have been the internet. Okay? That's the last thing you want.
I like scapulism, dog. I'm into it. Anyway, we got to get out of here. So we got a shooter in the head now. Okay.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, in both chats. And good always talking with you, Mike, and Scott. He has a good evening as well.
Okay. You guys have a good evening.